"One of your crank pins broke, Edward," said his driver. "We've taken your side rods off. Now you're like an old-fashioned engine. Can you get these people home? They must start back tonight."
"I'll try, sir," promised Edward.
As a child, the Reverend W would actually watch trains on the Great Western Railway, and the inspiration for Edward himself would actually come from this. He would explain in an interview that the noise of the locomotive's exhaust to him would almost sound like a dialogue. For example, the larger engine having trouble climbing the hills would appear to be saying, "I can't do it," and the smaller engine helping it would sound like it was saying, "I will do it." Later, he would tell his son a bedtime story about an engine who was in a similar predicament, and who was sad because he was old and wasn't allowed out of the shed much. Upon being asked what the engine's name was by his son, the Reverend Audrey picked the name Edward out of thin air, actually making him the first character to be created in the Railway series. For his model of Edward, Audrey would use a KMR 2P kit. Edward's original Gauge 1 model was a custom build, this being done with a Perspex body shell and a Markland locomotive as a donor for a chassis and various parts. It was painted using automotive paint and lined with red automotive pinstripe tape. The numbers were actually custom cut vinyl stickers. Edward's drive wheels and tinder wheels were sourced from a Gauge 1 locomotive made by Markland, this being the BR55. And his bogie wheels would actually be from the bogie of the BR78. His front buffer beam would also come from the BR78, while his rear buffer beam would come from the BR55. His handrails were also sourced from Markland locomotives. Edward's Perspex model was originally AC powered, as this is how Markland locomotives were powered as well. However, just like Thomas, during a refurbishment his AC motor was replaced with a DC motor, this being done to allow easier running and maintenance. During the production of the 10th season, 2 new models were built. At this point, the original model was around 22 years old, and tight filming schedules meant that there was very little room for emergency repairs, should there be any. The new models were made out of brass, and each equipped with a CNC machined aluminum chassis, these being powered by a DC motor. From this point onwards, the Perspex model would only appear in scenes that would damage the brass ones. The eye mechanism had 2 servos, one for up and down movement and one for left and right movement. The eyeballs would be coupled to a bracket and locked in by the faceplate, so whenever the servos were powered, the eyes would move however the crew wanted them to. 14 different facial expressions were made for Edward. First being sculpted in clay, resin casts would be made from a silicone mold. Some of these faces would be duplicated in case the crew needed one to be dirty and one to be clean. Thankfully, 4 of Edward's screen-used faces are actually owned by Thomas Tank Merch. Edward has been seen mistakenly wearing James's faces several times. You can actually see this on a promotional image from the first season, as well as in the episode Edward and Gordon. However, Edward isn't alone in such, as in Thomas and the Missing Christmas Tree, Donald can be seen wearing Edward's angry face. One of Edward's brass models is currently on display at the Hara Model Railway Museum, and is actually wearing his smiling face. It was actually previously on display at Nitrogen Studios. The other brass model would arrive at Drayton Manor in 2009, and since then has definitely been roughed up. His original neutral face was also on display, but was replaced with a replica of his smiling face expression. A larger close-up model was built to be used with scale figures, and initially this model only consisted of his cab and a small section of his firebox, this being built by the late Bernard Carr. The close-up model is now owned by Twitter user Tom's Props. Edward's close-up model would actually have to use Gordon's tinder, just with the number being hidden. However, sometime between the second season and the Great Discovery, a tinder will be built for Edward's close-up model. As we all know too well, in 2009 the show would switch to CGI, and like the other engines, Edward would be created by scratch from Nitrogen Studios. His model was hand-sculpted in Maya, a 3D animation and modeling software, and photographs of Edward's Gauge 1 model was used for reference. Edward's CGI model was pretty much identical to his Gauge 1 model, but does have minor modifications. In the 22nd series of Thomas and Friends, Edward would actually be removed from the Steam team, much to the dismay of basically everybody. He was actually replaced by Nia, all being done in an attempt to fix the gender imbalance at Tidmouth Sheds, and apparently to diversify Thomas. I think it just ruined it, honestly. With that being said, Edward may not be an important character to Mattel, but always will be important to the fandom and to the core essence of Thomas itself. I mean, without Edward, there wouldn't even be a Thomas, so to see such an important character be treated such a way is honestly kind of disheartening. However, time and time again, Mattel has proven to us that they really don't care about how we feel. So unfortunate as it is to do, at least we'll always be able to look back and appreciate what Edward once was, and to many still is, the most important character in Thomas and Friends. Be sure to let me know who you guys want to see next, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.